Ladies and gentlemen, hit subscribe to this channel right now. John Roberts, the Roberts Supreme Court gave Trump a huge victory in April that set a precedent against nationwide injunctions. You will hear from Chief Justice Roberts in a second. I want to read you this. This is the Washington Examiner article. Texas College law professor criticized the American Civil Liberties Union, who brought the case for a clear exercise in egregious forum or judge shopping, the notion where litigants seek venues that could be more favorable to their cause. The judge shopping ended. This was a precedent to prevent Democrats and political action committees and organizations from finding a favorable liberal judge or a favorable liberal federal judge to side with them and issue a nationwide injunction. In this case, it was a D.C. judge trying to stop what was taking place in Texas. Not going to happen anymore. This is huge. Also, within that Supreme Court decision, the district court should clarify its directive with due regard for deference owed. With due regard for deference owed to the executive branch in the conduct of foreign affairs. The Supreme Court already set a precedent in April that it will not allow federal judges to interfere in executive branch authority and the powers and authority given to the president in Article 2, Section 1 and other and the Constitution. Hit subscribe to this channel right now. Check this out. This is John Roberts going to bat for Trump, like he will in the future, pertaining to the immunity. And so the Supreme Court gave President Trump immunity from frivolous partisan prosecution. Democrats wanted to imprison Trump for a speech. Okay, check this out.
So the Court of Appeals below, whose decision we're reviewing, said, quote, a former president can be prosecuted for his official acts because the fact of the prosecution means that the former president has allegedly acted in defiance of the laws. Do you agree with that statement?
Well, I think it sounds tautologically true, but I want to underscore that the obligation of a president is to take care that the laws are faithfully executed.
Well, I think it sounds tautologically true as well, and that, I think, is the clearest statement of the court's holding, which is why it concerns me. As I read it, it says simply, a former president can be prosecuted because he's being prosecuted.
Well, I would not suggest that that's either the proper approach in this case or certainly not the government's approach.
This is just one example where John Roberts knows exactly what's taking place. Democrats said, well, we indicted him, so he must be guilty. If that's the standard, you can indict Biden you could have indicted Biden for promising that he would stay in the presidential contest in 2024. How many times in 3 weeks did Biden say in speeches, telling the world, telling his constituents, telling the country he would remain as president, remain as the Democratic nominee, only to be usurped, only to step down and be usurped by his vice president? Did he lie? Was he deceiving the country? Did he disenfranchise all of those millions and millions of Democrats that voted for him in the Democratic primary that doesn't even exist? It's a complete theatrical performance. They don't even have functioning primaries, and they pontificate about democracy. So did Biden lie? What about he preemptively pardoned everyone around him, Biden? Did he lie about the laptop? Did he lie about working alongside Hunter and everyone else to perhaps enrich themselves because of bribery, graft, everything that was in that laptop that 50 intel officials stated was a plot by the Kremlin? Did he lie then? Should he be imprisoned for lying about the laptop or his pay-to-play schemes or preemptively pardoning everyone or the 3 weeks that he didn't step down? No, of course not. The point, ladies and gentlemen, is that, well, okay, according to Democrats, if you use the standard by which they went after Trump, if you lie to the country in a speech knowing that you're lying, and Biden knew he'd be forced to step down because that's the way the political machine works in the Democratic Party. Biden knew that he engaged in almost certain graft and bribery. Biden knew the laptop was business that that he and his son and others conducted, Biden preemptively pardoned everyone. Okay, that the greatest admission of guilt, short of simply admitting it in court. And so did he knowingly lie in speeches? Of course he did. But that's my point. My point is Chief Justice Roberts knows exactly what's going on. A lot of this pushback on Roberts, I think, is a bit misguided. Let's continue.
A prosecution does, of course, invoke federal criminal law. The allegations have to be presented to a grand jury, which votes upon the indictment.
Well, that's what I mean, shortly after that statement in the court's opinion, that's what they said. But there's no reason to worry because the prosecutor will act in good faith, and there's no reason to worry because a grand jury will have returned the indictment. Mm-hmm. Now, you know how easy it is in many cases for a prosecutor to get a grand jury to bring an indictment, and reliance on the good faith of the prosecutor may not be enough in the some cases. I'm not suggesting here. So if it's tautological, and those are the only protections that the Court of Appeals below gave, and that is no longer your position, you're not defending that position, why shouldn't we either send it back to the Court of Appeals or issue an opinion making clear that that's not the law?
Well, I am defending the Court of Appeals.
So Roberts completely dismantled the Jack Smith argument against Trump. I want people to remember that because Roberts here also dismantles the and there were federal court decisions that the Supreme Court overturned immediately with the immunity decision. Okay, federal court stated Trump had no immunity from obviously and overtly partisan attempts at trying to go after Trump. They said that they were it was so absurd. They said that Trump really knew he lost fair and square to Biden. Not for a second did Trump or most of the country ever feel that it was fair and square. Okay, but let's continue. This was a 9-0 decision. The Supreme Court continues that there's like 8 major Supreme Court victories in the past 3 years for President Trump and conservatives that the Roberts Court gave to the country. And so the pushback against Roberts, he has to represent the court in a manner that is not overtly partisan. But the rulings almost always are in President Trump's favor. Check this out. This was a 9-0 decision. Even the liberal justices sided with Roberts and President Trump.
Everybody understood at the time that those people would be disqualified the moment that Section 3 was enacted forever unless they received amnesty.
Counselor, what do you do with what would seem to me to be plain consequences of your position? If Colorado's position is upheld, surely there will be disqualification proceedings on the other side, and some of those will succeed. Some of them will have different standards of proof. Some of them will have different rules about evidence. Maybe the Senate report won't be accepted in others because it's hearsay. Maybe it's beyond a reasonable doubt, whatever. In very quick order, I would expect, although my predictions have never been correct, I would expect that a goodly number of states will say, whoever the Democratic candidate is, you're off the ballot, and others, for the Republican candidate, you're off the ballot. And it'll come down to just a handful of states that are going to decide the presidential election. That's a pretty daunting consequence.
Well, certainly.
So this was a ruling against the Colorado Supreme Court. And so the Supreme Court, that's what it does. It overturns lower court decisions because these lower court decisions, whether it's the Supreme Court in Colorado or the federal court saying Trump doesn't have immunity, are unconstitutional. The Democrats love to say, well, just stop breaking the law. Stop engaging in unconstitutional partisan attempts at imprisoning your opponent or preventing them from being on the ballot. Anyway, the point is the initial Alien Enemies Act victory will serve to end nationwide injunctions. Even AOC and Ron Wyden want those ended. Even the liberal justices might even side to end well, it's the birthright citizenship they won't, but the birthright citizenship case upcoming this week. You'll hear the oral arguments on this channel, and it'll be very interesting to see. It'll be very interesting to hear and see how Roberts eventually defends Trump. Hit subscribe. This is huge.